There's been, in my mind, no management thinker like Peter.
Meet Peter Drucker and learn why he's called the father of modern management.
A management consultant is a big masquerade. He's the most profound, pragmatic philosopher that I've ever known of.
Management around the world owes a debt of gratitude to somebody who devoted his life to clarifying the role of people, the role of an organization in our society.
Book on management, very simple. I had been working by the time for 10 years or so, consulting, and I had begun to teach management for 2 or 3 years, and there simply was nothing, or very little. And so I kind of sat down and wrote it, very conscious of the fact that I was laying the foundations for a discipline.
In the Practice of Management, which was, I think, probably his first popular book about management, Peter makes the comment that there is no business without a customer. You think, well, what's so big deal, you know? Well, it's not. I mean, it is a big deal. It's because that, in its essence, is both the beginning of what we would come to know as a marketing mindset. It's the mindset of someone who says, what my organization is about is satisfying the needs and wants of people who are not part of the organization. It's not about what we can do internally. It's about the results that we have out in the world, the impact that we have, whether someone else wants what it is that we're doing.
Many American industrial managers learned their Drucker principles the hard way, from strong Japanese competitors in the 1970s and 80s. But by then, Drucker was already pointing the way to a new post-industrial world, the knowledge society.
Knowledge is the key entity, the dynamic force that will decide whether your business fails or not, that will decide whether the society fails or not. Then certain things follow. Education has to be the central social activity. Education not just as a matter of school, but as a matter, you know, but lifelong learning, continuous learning. Peter is one of the first people to talk about this as a social necessity.
As a teacher, Drucker has changed the thinking of generations of businessmen and women within the classroom and through his consulting practice. Investment banker John Veronis was a student of Drucker's at New York University in the 1950s.
One of the early things I heard Peter say is, don't confuse motion with progress. As simple as that. And that almost became my headline on a daily basis for almost anything I did. And I would ask myself, am I confusing motion with progress? Am I busy but not productive? Am I busy and directionless? I lived with that credo.
GE's former CEO, Jack Welch, remembers his first meeting with Peter Drucker, a week after he had taken over the top job in 1981.
Reg Jones brought Peter to New York, asked Peter to come to New York, and just to chat with me about his philosophy. Peter had worked for GE over a long period of time, and Reg just wanted me to become familiar with him. So we sat in Reg's office in New York, and I listened to him.
And he told Jack Welch, unless you are number 1 or number 2 in whatever business you're in, aircraft engines, whatever it may be, get out of it. And this is a very simple lesson. It's not complicated. And Jack Welch followed this advice ruthlessly, getting rid of everything that didn't follow Drucker's formula. And that is really what drove General Electric into being the most successful American corporation, perhaps in the world, during the last 20 years. It was Drucker's simple idea.
One of the companies that Drucker has advised is ServiceMaster. ServiceMaster is a $3.5 billion multinational corporation in the consumer service industry. Years ago, Pollard invited Drucker to a meeting of the company's board of directors to help them with strategic planning decisions.
Well, his first question of our board was one of his famous questions. What is your business? He listened to various responses from our board. Some of our board members said, well, we're in the cleaning business. Some board said, well, by that time we had already gotten into pest control. So we're in the business of killing bugs. Or we're in the business of taking care of lawns. Or we're in the business of serving hospitals. So we got all these different responses. So after about 10 minutes, listening to our board give these different responses of what we did, he told our board something I've never been able to tell the board of directors. He said, you're all wrong. He said, you're simply in the business of training and developing people. You package it all different ways to serve the needs of the customers. But you can't deliver a service without people. You can't deliver a quality service without trained and motivated people. That is your business. And you know, he was right on. It's been a wonderful, constant reminder about what this company is all about.
One of Drucker's strengths as a management thinker is the way he relates the mission and purpose of an organization to its daily activities. This focus has also been a hallmark of his work with America's nonprofit organizations. We'll hear more about Drucker's contributions to what he calls the social sector when we return.
He wrote about the betrayal, the way management has betrayed its workers long before Enron was a gleam in Ken Lay's eyes. He could see it happen. The self-dealing, the serving ourselves, he was vastly disappointed.
And where does he turn? Where are workers going to find community and satisfaction? Drucker turns to the nonprofit sector of philanthropies, schools, hospitals, and churches.
Peter notes the phenomenon of volunteerism. He sees it growing everywhere. Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, community groups, soup kitchens. And he's gone back here to Tocqueville, who saw that as one of the really distinguishing features of American democracy, the voluntary association, people joining up to do things apart from government.
I'm not a volunteer in any one organization, or wasn't, but I have devoted pretty much half of my consulting time to pro bono volunteer work.
From his decades of experience with nonprofit organizations like the American Heart Association, the Red Cross, and the Girl Scouts, Drucker wrote Managing the Nonprofit Organization in 1990.
One of the most interesting aspects of Peter's thinking has been his ability to refine and clarify ideas and to reduce things to essentials that can then become the kind of guiding principles for busy people, which most executives are. So that when he began to talk about working with nonprofits and introducing some of the ideas of management into the world of nonprofit organizations, he could reduce it to, you know, who is my customer? What is the value? What are the results we produce? What's the plan? How will we get there?
He kind of goes right at the central problem with the nonprofits. He says, virtue isn't enough. You know, it's not enough to say we want to be good. You've got to be efficient. You've got to remember the person out there.
Some of you know that I've been saying for a good many years that I consider the Girl Scouts the best managed organization I know. I told that to the reporter from the St. Louis Post-Dispatch this morning, and he was a little surprised.
Frances Hesselbein used to head up the Girl Scouts, one of the largest volunteer organizations in the country. Now she is chairman of the Drucker Foundation for Nonprofit Management. She and Drucker have had a long and productive relationship helping the nonprofit sector manage more effectively.
As Peter says, it all comes down to changing lives. And all the 1,600,000 nonprofits, social sector organizations in this country share that bottom line. It's the financial bottom line that is not the bottom line that drives the organization. And that doesn't mean that you don't have to be, as Peter would remind us, we have to be better financial managers than business or government, because you have no excess. But always the bottom line is changing lives.
A nonprofit institution that has attracted Drucker's attention is the megachurch. These fast-growing churches have attracted huge numbers of Americans over the past decades.
My interest in the megachurches was as a social phenomenon. I saw them creating community for these young, educated, successful professionals who in 9 cases out of 10 were rootless, came out of the small town or the farm or the working class, and now in the big city, and very successful in their work, and had no community. And this is the need or the opportunity which a megachurch exploits.
God wants to use people in your life. You can't grow without others. You need fellowship.
The Saddleback Valley Community Church in Lake Forest, California, has been one of the fastest-growing churches in America since it was founded in 1980. Pastor Rick Warren speaks to as many as 17,000 people each weekend, and Saddleback lists more than 53,000 names on its roll of attendees.
One of the things I love about Peter Drucker is that he helps those of us in nonprofit ministries to figure out what is the purpose. He emphasizes why are you here? If you don't know why you're there, then you have no reason to exist.
He actually finds these institutions. He can find, and he becomes a consultant to them and discovers their importance and tells them why what they're doing is so important. And again, this follows from his big picture analysis. Where is community to be found? Can't be found in the insecure workplace. That's gone. Careers are yesterday. So where are people going to find a rich civic life? Through the megachurch.
And the way we do this is what we call our lay ministries. On a typical weekend, there'll be about 18,000 people coming out of these facilities, and this patio will be covered with tables from up to 196 different ministries. These people care for all the different needs. You name a problem, Saddleback tries to meet that need in the community. We divorce care, people who are going through problems with their children, people who are have someone in jail, a loved one in jail, people who are parents of Down syndrome children. You name an area, any kind of support group you could imagine. We would have ministering to people, and they can come out and get information on that. But it all goes back to the purpose. What is the mission? And the mission of our organization, the bottom line of the church, is change lives.
In 1989, Drucker published an article in the Harvard Business Review. It was called, "What Business Can Learn from Nonprofits."
And the argument that he made there, very simply, was that because nonprofits had to work so much with volunteers and had to learn how to motivate them, organize them, harness their motivation, and get them to be productive, when it was purely voluntary, they could walk out any moment, would be prophetic for business organizations whose greatest resource were the people who walked out the door every night carrying all of their tools with them in their heads.
In his work with the social sector, he had at last found institutions that offered a true sense of community. Drucker has found his own personal fulfillment in a community of scholars, students, and fellow management consultants, as we shall see when we return.
There isn't anybody like Drucker, and I don't know how there could be anybody in the future like Drucker. He's one of a kind.
Through his writings, through his moral suasion, through his great skill as an explainer, through his exhortations, through his practical advice, he has made a difference in the lives of people.
What makes him a classic is that he noticed the important enduring things about organizations and how they work well together.
I mean, when anybody thinks about the discipline or the practice or the theory or the study of management, professional business management, well, they're going to think about Peter Drucker.